The first practice session of the new season, and a familiar face at the top of the timesheets in the form of reigning world champion Lewis Hamilton, but it was tight, really tight at the top of the timesheets. Just 7/100 separating the top three. That included both the Ferrari drivers and just a further 2/10 from Lewis Hamilton back to Max Verstappen. It augurs very well, Paul di Resta and Damon Hill, for what we were hoping was going to be the case with three teams in it.
Yeah, it does look like it. Would I say Red Bull are right there? No. They are right at the sharp end, though, and I think Max, more importantly, Max looks alive. He's using every bit of track. He had a very clean session. He was right up there. I'd hope he was on pole come Saturday, but it certainly looks like Ferrari and Mercedes have got it under control again at the top end. But the midfield battle is great, and that's what really excites it.
I was just talking to Karun back in the office, and what he was saying from having a look trackside is that, again, as we probably expected, was the same last year. Ferrari, Mercedes, fast and medium corners looking pretty planted, but in the slower corners, Red Bull looking very good.
Yeah, and that follows a pattern, doesn't it, of what we've seen over the years. It's not that unexpected, I suppose, that they look good in the slow corners. I mean, their car seems to be set up for high downforce at lower speeds. Now they've got a bit of punch in the engine, maybe, as well, with the Honda. They're able to attack the faster corners. But the red car, not the Red Bull, the red car, the Ferrari, I mean, that looked, the onboard of Charles Leclerc's lap looked so easy and so comfortable.
Yeah, well, let's have a look at it. Incredibly planted, very well balanced car. What would be your observations, initial observations?
Yeah, he's going to be a star of the future, and he could be a star this weekend very easily if he gets his three sectors together in qualifying. He's right up there, half a tenth behind Vettel, with that little bit of traffic in the last sector as well. He got the job done, and he's doing exactly what he needs to do. The conditions are perfect for him. His first Grand Prix in Ferrari. He's got the experience. He knows how to drive a race car. It's just about getting all the information around them working.
Well, it's an incredible marker, isn't it? If anything, you have to say 3/100ths off your teammate as a 21-year-old against a four-time world champion.
That's a dream debut. I mean, obviously you'd like to be quicker, but to actually, if you look at new guys in a team arriving in Formula One for the first time, not the first time in a new team in Ferrari, but I mean coming here and being that close to your new teammate. That's a wake-up call for Sebastian Vettel, for sure.
There's only one lap he needs to be quicker, and it's the last lap in Q3, and that will make him. That will make the impression. Over the race distance, I'm sure he'll be closer, but it's just about unleashing it as they start to wind things up, dealing with that.
Yep. But initial impressions, very, very good for the young Ferrari driver. Let's hear from his team principal, Mattia Binotto. This is what he had to say after that opening practice session, talking to Rachel Brooks.
Can I ask you first of all about the mood at Maranello, the mood in the team right now? It looks like the team have had a good winter, come out fighting at the start of the season.
I think we had a good winter testing, it's true. I think that good collaborations, the team is in good shape, but we know as well that the competition will be very tough. It's just the start of a very long season, and I think we still need to, there is much to do, a lot to work. So we need to stay focused, concentrated, hard work. It's the only thing that we can do.
What's the main role you're taking on at the moment? You're obviously here as team principal, but are you able to do the job you need to do? Do you need to replace yourself almost from your old role?
Certainly, let's say that the technical is still the main focus. You need to have a car which is running well, otherwise there are no discussions. But I think that my main role is to make sure that each single person can somehow deliver the right response to their own role, and making sure they're working properly.
What about your two drivers, Sebastian and Charles? It's a big year for Sebastian. The last time a young rookie, or a youngster I should say, came in with Daniel Ricciardo, he was beaten by him. It's a really important year for him to establish himself. Do you see that? I mean, and also how will it play out? They're free to race until it comes to a point where you need to make a decision?
I think that for Sebastian there is, let me say, it's obviously Charles is very fast, Charles is a good kid. But Sebastian got the experience. Sebastian is a very fast driver, he's the world champion, he knows how to drive, he knows what to do. So I think that the mix is a fantastic mix, because we got experience on one side, young kid on the other, so we are pretty happy with them. And the two are fitting very well together. And I think that's what is important, because more important is that the team is delivering well as a team. And I think that both of them at the moment are working not as individual but as team players.
How long will that last, though? You have to ask that question, but that was him before, giving a little pep talk. But yes, he's clearly got a very old head on young shoulders, as so many of these young drivers coming into Formula One do have. Now, obviously, we're keeping an eye, too, on the aero upgrades. Big ones expected here from the end of testing in Barcelona through to the start of Australia. They were doing something kind of weird with their brake ducts. Experimental, it seemed, running different settings on either side. What was that about, and how would that affect the car, Paul?
Yeah, well, you're going for your cooling packages, whether that was brake disc related or whether that was tyre carcass, because we know the energy that comes through the brakes they try to put into the wheel. But to imbalance that, Damon will know, if you've got a 20-30 degree imbalance on your brake discs across axles, you start to lock, and that's where it gets difficult. But this is where Ferrari are supreme. That's where they're taking it to the next level. And with the new leadership of Binotto, he's a technical man, so he is going to be cracking that whip when it's time for his team to deliver. And it's not for him to be back there in the design office all the time. He's got to lead that whole team. But if he understands it, it's a great way forward.
People wondered, didn't they, whether it would be a problem for him with the technical director's hat on as well as the team principal's hat. But and Sky One. It's a bit of a slow first session for Renault, just 20 laps between Daniel Ricciardo and Nico Hülkenberg. Electrical issue with Hülkenberg. Let's get up to David Croft in the commentary box.
Throttle for 77% of this lap. You've got to put the brakes on sometimes. Felipe Massa running into David Coulthard. Maybe could have braked a bit early on that one. Coulthard's race ending in 2008 down at turn 1. Down at turn 3 in 2007. Guess what? Coulthard's race ended again. Alex Wurz in the Williams, seeing the Red Bull sliding over the top of that particular cockpit. Turn 12 is a flat-out corner. Sometimes you can go a bit too far to the left-hand side, as Timo Glock found out in 2008 and had a very bumpy landing when he rejoined the track. There is accidents, there is incidents, there's excitement all the way around this circuit. You have to be very, very careful of those barriers. Here's the 3 tyre compounds for the season. Soft, medium, hard. That's simple. There are 5 separate tyre compounds to choose from, though. And Pirelli have brought the second softest and the second hardest compounds in their range, and the one slap bang in the middle, the medium tyre with the yellow stripe this year, not the soft tyre. It's a beautiful day here. The breeze is quite steady and quite welcoming as well, because it's really, really hot. And alongside me in the commentary box, a duo that we will now call Casey and the Sunshine Blonde. Karun Chandok and Johnny Herbert for this afternoon. Chaps, welcome along.
Thank you very much.
Good to be here once again.
Yes, Johnny was here this morning. You were down the pit lane. What did you find out?
I was. It's much nicer being in the air conditioning room this afternoon, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a really good start for the season almost.
Yeah,
you know, the top 5 guys within 2.5 tenths, and okay, Gasly a little bit on the back foot. We'll see if he gets a proper run this afternoon. But all the signs that we saw in testing, that the top 3 teams are going to be in the fight, we saw a little bit of that this morning, didn't we?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
really, really close. And the midfield as well, Johnny.
Yes, and I think that's what's great, because I think, you know, we're going to probably go into qualifying, probably going to have that little sort of differential between the top 3. But then as the race comes to us, I think that gap might get closer as well, which then means we might have a little bit more proper action coming our way.
And the rookies got on the track as well. Lando Norris and George Russell managed to get round without too many scrapes. Alex Albon, though, suffered possibly the worst incident that can happen on your debut, your first FP1 session at a race weekend where you know you're going to go onwards, and he stuffed it into the barrier.
Yeah, that was unfortunate for him, really, wasn't it? Just down at the turn 1-2 chicane. But the car didn't look too badly damaged. You know, just a little bit of bodywork to the rear wing end plate. But Kvyat did a good job, didn't he, on his return? P7 this morning.
Absolutely.
That was a strong effort from him. Stroll, I thought, did a good job, his first session at Racing Point. So, you know, lots of stories, but it's still day one. We didn't see Ricciardo, for example, do a proper run. We didn't see quite a few people really get a proper time on the board. You know, Kimi, P6 in the Alfa Romeo. That's a strong start to his, what should we call it, his 5th career, really.
How about his homecoming? Kimi's homecoming.
Yes, very much
He
so.
goes back to the team that he started at. Of course, it was called Sauber in those days, but he's gone all the way back. When was it? 2001, the last time that he drove for Sauber, and he came here as a very young rookie. How many races had Kimi Räikkönen actually had before he made his debut in Formula One?
About
Do you know?
3, wasn't it?
I think
Wasn't
he
many.
only did 20 races in Formula Renault. I think,
Absolutely.
wasn't it? It was,
Yeah,
and
it
he
was
dominated
hardly
that.
anything.
Well, he dominated that championship. Absolutely dominated it. And you know, I remember when he arrived. I mean, I still am friends with Steve Robertson, his manager. I remember Steve saying to me, "We're working quite hard. We think he can go straight from Formula Renault to F1." I was saying to Steve, are you mad? I'm like, what are you talking about? But he arrived here, qualified, I think 13th on the grid on his debut.
Yeah.
And then finished 7th on the road.
Sixth on the road.
No,
That's
someone
very
got
good.
disqualified.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, very good
He finished
memory.
7th on the road, someone got disqualified, and he got 6th, wasn't it? There was a yellow flag in front of him or something, someone got disqualified. But he was stupendous on his debut, and all those doubters, and I think Ron was one of, if I remember correctly, the people like Ron Dennis and stuff were all questioning how can this young kid go straight from Formula 1 to F1. But then Ron signed him 6 months later at McLaren, which was a great turnaround.
And of course he came back here and got his maiden podium for McLaren, and when he raced here for Ferrari for the first time, he got a win for Ferrari as well. He rather likes Albert.
And one for Lotus, of course.
Correct.
Yes. So yeah, no, he's good round here. And
if there's a podcast, Beyond the Grid, the Tom Clarkson podcast, where Kimi talks about his season at Lotus, or the bit.
And then got in when the car wasn't quite underneath.
Grosjean then has done a Control-Alt-Delete on his dashboard, and it's a 1:25.6 from Romain Grosjean as he crosses the line. Now, in terms of times, by the way, Hamilton's fastest time today, the fastest of the session, a 1:23.599. So call it a 1:23.6 on that one, compares to a 1:24.0 as his fastest time from FP1 12 months ago. They've done an awful lot of work, Karun, over the winter to try and make these cars less reliant on aerodynamics and therefore slow them down possibly a little bit. That hasn't worked at all, has it?
Well, that shows the evolution of Formula 1, isn't it? Because in the first iteration of the design, when the teams did their first simulations of just going from the 18 car to the 19 regulations, they were a second and a half off.
Yeah.
And effectively, they've caught up that and a bit more, you know, just based on FP1, of course. But we'll see when it comes to qualifying. We all expect them to be ahead. So that's a proper chunk forward, isn't it? That temperature, by the way, guys, up to 44 degrees. So that's really scorching now. I mean, last year we were cold here, weren't we?
It can get very, very cold at night here, by the way. On the subject of temperature, Callum Ramsey said, did Crofty just say it's hot in Melbourne? And then has Muttley sniggering underneath. M said, very chilly parts of the world, not Monaco. But mate, you're suffering down there.
It's a bit warmer down here than it is up where you are, Crofty, but I've got a bit more space to work. Just want to pick up on the front wings, what you're talking about. Obviously new this year. We can go into the dimensions where they are, but what I want to show you, the difference between Ferrari's concept and Mercedes. Look how high the planes are in the middle, nearest the nose. They really ramp up, whereas at the end plates, they're a bit shallower. And you can really see they're concentrating on the inner part of the wing to try and get the downforce and how sculpted it is. Come over to the Mercedes and it just looks a bit more normal. You know, you can see there's not that big dip when it gets to the outer plane, and they are really working the outside of that front wing. And then when you get into that, obviously Mercedes carrying that undercut they've got in the front nose that leads into the barge board, whereas Ferrari keeping their concept from last year. So deep down, although the rules have changed a lot, we really have carried a lot over from last year. And hopefully that's where we're going to see the performance in both cars, because it's equally as good at different times. But we'll see how it works. But the rear wings and the front wings, I can't believe how much bigger they are when you actually see them in person.
Thing is, though, who's got it right and who's got it wrong? Mercedes go for one concept, Ferrari go for another. Sauber have gone for something even more dramatic on that. And they'll be asking themselves this question at the teams, of course. Have we got it right? Have we got it wrong? And if they have got it wrong, changing things around is not...
Head of aero at Alfa Romeo, and he was saying, so it's always a slightly nerve-wracking moment when you get to Barcelona and everyone unveils their cars in the pit lane, and he goes, our front wing's quite different to everybody else's, and that's a slightly nerve-wracking moment. But you look at the Red Bull, I was looking in the pit lane this morning, and Paul, you're down there, you'll see it as well. The amount of angle they've got on the front flap is very reminiscent to what they've had over the last few years. It's what we've seen from Red Bull the last few years. Clearly, their philosophy of, you know, having the high rear end, the rake of the car, and these high angles on the elements of the front wing, they've stuck with it. They believe, and really, you know, it's just down to your concept. It doesn't mean one's right and one's wrong. It's just what's the philosophy you followed. And you know, you'd be a brave man to question Adrian Newey on aerodynamic philosophy, wouldn't you?
I might do it on his new beard, but not on aerodynamic philosophy, certainly. Johnny, we're approaching turn 11 here with Charles Leclerc on board.
Yeah, well, I think earlier on we could see the change of direction. This Ferrari was just really positive, and again, I think you can see it there, hopefully back home. But of course, as we go down this sort of little short burst down to this right-hander, quite open on the exit, so you can sort of get on the power very easily. But it's turn 14 and especially 15 where you really do see the difference. You can see that front end really does bite, and especially here at the slow speed, mechanical grip comes into effect, but you get on the power, just a little bit of an ease on the throttle once again, not using that much track on the outside there, so that looks as if that Ferrari looks pretty pinned as he goes down to a bumpy turn 1.
It's a 126.6 for Charles Leclerc. He's on the hard compound tyre. He's got one more set of those than his teammate Sebastian Vettel has. As a result, has one less set of the medium tyres, which I'm not sure is going to be anything like an advantage for this weekend. That medium tyre actually looks to be performing quite well. There you can see the back end sliding around a little bit. Tim Brundle is trackside as ever. Good afternoon, mate.
Hi Crofty, hello everybody. As I'm watching Seb Vettel actually run a little bit wide through turn 1. I'm on the outside of turn 2. Found a pretty nice perch here up with the photographers who always know where they're going to see some good action, of course. And a good reminder that how tight turn 1 is. We see so many accidents down there, don't we, cars running out into the gravel, especially at the start. It's tighter than 90 degrees as the Haas of Grosjean comes through there. They minimise the angle of the corner, and for the second time we got Kimi Räikkönen bouncing across the grass. That's the second time I've seen him make a mistake into this corner in 3 laps. And one of the reasons, I don't know if it shows up on that tree over there, Lee, just how stiff the wind is as they turn in to turn 1. They've got a tailwind which takes away some of the downforce. We saw Alex Albon reverse it in to the barriers down here in the first session. So down on the track, they're kind of slightly protected by those grandstands for the wind component, but nonetheless, I think it's giving them quite a challenge. Seen a lot of drama, and again Leclerc comes in too hot and right front all locked up. It's a difficult braking zone to get right. There's no doubt about that. So we've got a Red Bull on its way down here. They are extraordinarily quick through the apex. We'll wait and see if it rocks up. Obviously the racing point comes through here first. What I have noticed more than any time before is when they shift heading down, shift up gears, heading down to Crashfield, turn 3 down there, you can hear the oscillation. So you get all of the give in the tyre, the transmission, it goes a long, lazy shift, and I don't know if it's just because the angle I'm watching from, but I've not heard that quite so much. And 2 more things visually. When they harvest, they've got 3 red lights, of course, that are coming on in the back, a bit like a Christmas tree. And on a gloriously sunny day like this, I don't like the Ferrari matte paint. It doesn't glisten, it doesn't really shine. Somehow it doesn't work as well as the Red Bull, for example, but just a personal feeling. But they're certainly carrying good speed to it. Oh, hang on, that's really wide. Just about there for Lance Stroll. Got a bit of a swapper on between the 2 apexes and just about ended up in the wall on the outside of turn 2 here. So a remarkable amount of action so early in the session. Leclerc this time does find what is commonly known as the racing line. Back to you, Crofty.
Well, the racing track would be quite handy for some of them down there, Martin. I get the feeling he could stay there forever and watch cars, but that was a layer. Congratulations to our mate Mark Thompson, who picked up 3 awards recently at the SJA Awards, the Triple Crown, as he was telling me, and had a brilliant night, but thoroughly well deserved for one of the best F1 photographers in the business.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to pick up on what Martin was saying, one of the things that I noticed when going trackside and testing was that the Red Bull is very good in this medium slow speed corners, particularly braking and turning into the apex of those medium slow speed corners. They're very, very good. And here you got, for example, turn 1 and medium speed. You've got quite a few of those. But in the fast, high speed stuff, and it'll be interesting to see, if that's carried on when Martin, if he does get around to the quicker corners. The Ferrari and the Mercedes did
in the right place on that beginning lap of qualifying, and it is really down to you to find out exactly where you need to be. So the drivers as well have got to be very aware.
You're absolutely right, Johnny, because you know, I always sometimes wonder when drivers, you know, they get in other people's way and they say, oh, the engineer didn't warn me. It's like,
yeah, but
you've got mirrors,
yes,
haven't you?
Yes,
And you sometimes wonder about that.
But if you think you can see enough through those mirrors, then the engineers are going to tell you, well, we need to change that then, because they're not doing their job, and they're there for aerodynamic influence, not for you to see it.
You can see enough.
You
don't have to see everything, but you can see enough.
Yeah.
And if you think it's bad this weekend, wait until Monaco. Rascasse could be a car park halfway through the session. As we mentioned earlier, Anthony Hamilton here to cheer on his son. Lewis Hamilton at the moment hasn't set a time in this session. Kevin Magnussen, Danny Kvyat and Pierre Gasly have. They're the top three. Charles Leclerc about to go out in his Ferrari. Then we've got Hamilton from Bottas, from Max Verstappen as the top three, and Paul di Resta's down in the pit lane.
Yeah, Crofty, it's quite hard just as I've come down to me. I was trying to show you just in the brake duct at the Haas, so you can see where the scoop is, but more importantly to me is where it directs the air around the whole front of the brake drum. It's really cooling the rim, and you can see that funnels into another kind of edge that leads it back into where the disc is. Is this, you know, a way of trying to get the blown axle back that we saw evidently on the Red Bull, and I think it was a Ferrari last year, but you can really see how they're trying to work that and cool it, and I'm quite surprised under these cool conditions that's the option they're going for today. But you know, you can see various different ways that each team's doing it, but I think that is the best example I saw on the Haas.
Right, Nico Hülkenberg, thanks Paul, out on the track. We'll follow this lap right the way through to the end from the helicam at the moment, giving us a great shot over the lake and down towards the downtown area as Nico makes his way into the final sector. Slowest corner on the track, left-hander at turn 14, and then find a way to get the car as straight as you possibly can in qualifying, certainly to open up that DRS and a dash to the line. And Hülkenberg goes 8th fastest with a 1:25.0 in the Renault. This is the Toro Rosso of Alex Albon, going very slowly, but don't worry, he's doing that to make some space. Max Verstappen is going to be next to cross the line, could be the fastest time of all so far. Verstappen goes second fastest actually, 3 milliseconds clear of Valtteri Bottas and behind Lewis Hamilton as we welcome into the commentary box. For the first time ever, the Renault reserve driver and F2 superstar, Jack Aitken. How are you, Jack? We've got a camera right behind you. You can say hello to your adoring fans and wave a little bit. How are you?
Good, yeah, I was hoping this would be just a radio affair. I wouldn't have to show all this.
You take your cue from Johnny Herbert,
yeah.
You go do your hair and everything.
Yeah, I know, some of my makeup, it's a real stress every morning.
Beautiful, beautiful.
You've come in the Renault team kit, which is a good thing. You'll keep them happy with that. But what news from Renault? How was this morning's session?
So obviously you guys saw Nico had a little bit of an issue. He had to reset the battery, so that was a flaw on the pace. I think we'll get a bit of a better idea now.
That's really interesting, Kieran, because a lot of fans back home will be thinking, certainly in Australia where we are, Daniel Ricciardo, what's happened? He's right all the way down, but deliberately slower times because he's having to pick up the slack that Nico couldn't manage.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. That happens every now and then, but, you know, bit of juggling, and we're kind of back on track now this session, so, yeah.
Something's just gone past our commentary box there, and either at the back of it has fallen.
I'll have to say, but...
Oh yeah, but we can talk about this forever because it makes us giggle a lot. It'll be singing Boy Soprano. Tell you what, Jack, you've done a lot of laps here in the sim. Take us through a commentary lap with Daniel Ricciardo. Off you go.
So it's just come through turn 1 and turn 2, which is a lot about timing because of that nasty inside curve. Big braking zone now into turn 3. It's very easy to lock up or snatch a wheel. It's got through that nice and clearly. Then it's a quick work your way over to the track, get yourself positioned. This one's nearly flat if you've got the car set up how you like it. Through this very, very bumpy section, the braking zone is always difficult. Again, avoiding the curve on the inside and just using a bit on the outside. This next one, you've seen a few drivers put a wheel on the outside, on the left-hand side, off the track onto the grass. So you've got to be careful of that. Again, got to get the timing right with the curb, get the power down. Very tricky to avoid that outside wall with the rear moving around. And then this next section, the fastest part of the track. And it's very important to try and get yourself positioned over to the left like Daniel did there. Use all the curb, DRS, going into another big braking zone down here. You're thinking about the end of the lap now. Tyres are starting to go away a bit. You want to keep things going. Again, you can use a little bit of the outside curb. Another one here. Daniel had his mishap here last year. It's a very tough corner. Tough braking zone. You're coming over to the right again. He's just missed the apex a little bit there. And then just feathering the throttle through this last corner to get across the line.
Jack Aitken, ladies and gentlemen, with a superb description there. He said to me at lunchtime, I've done a few laps in the sim, and I thought, well, we'll put it to the test. He's not wrong, you know. Good lap from Daniel Ricciardo, better lap from Lewis Hamilton. Different programme, I think, Mercedes to pretty much everyone else at the moment. Hamilton extends his advantage, goes even faster with a 1:23.1. These lap times, Jack, are so much quicker than even last year. Is that what you guys were expecting when you came here?
I think so. I mean, once we saw the kind of lap times that we were doing at Barcelona in testing, you could see that really people had made a big step forward, even with the new front wings and regulations, which is, I suppose, it's natural in Formula One, isn't it?
So we've got Jack in the commentary box, and Johnny and yourself, Karun, and me, and then Paul in the pit lane. Damon Hill had nothing to do, so we thought we'd go and stick him in the Renault garage for a bit. And guess what, champ? This time there's actually a car there for you to see.
Yeah, we've got a car and we've got guests as well. I'm in the Strangers Gallery here, I think you'd probably call it. And I can see the back of Alain Prost's head, who is engrossed. I was always told not to sit too close to the screen, but he's very close and he's looking intently at what's going on. Got a bit of action there on Nico's car, and it was kind of a very surreal experience because I was listening to Jack Aitken describing the lap of Daniel Ricciardo as I was walking from the... So I couldn't actually see it, but I could imagine it in my mind. And he did a fantastic job of describing the lap. And it's a pretty intense experience being in a garage, as you know, because...
On the softest tyre of the lot. Well, we'll try and piece together all the clues for you.
Piece to camera with my sunglasses on, and I'm expecting a very stern letter from Murray Walker in the week. He told me back in 1997, never, ever wear sunglasses on television. And I haven't ever since then, but I did on that particular occasion. So I'm on the outside of 11, as I said. One of my highlights of the year, certainly it makes me feel we're back into a Formula One season, because although there's no braking component here, there is very much a major demand on the cars with a high-speed entry, a very high-speed direction change into turn 12. And it's quite informative for me as I watch and see who can keep a tight line through 11, through the left-hander in front of me. The Red Bull's going slowly there. And look at this Ferrari. It is glued to the racetrack. It's a really tight corner, taken at incredibly high speed. And the Ferrari has a stability, and so does the Alfa, but not quite. You can hear the Alfa just lifting off the throttle. The McLaren through there has a little twitch. We'll see if we can have a McLaren coming along at one point. The Haas looks very good through here too. Force India, Racing Point, sorry, not too bad. First time I've seen a Merc, that's on an outlap. But the McLaren and the Williams and others, and I must say the Renault, have a little step of instability as the driver asks for maximum stability under direction change, carrying the high speed. I love the binary feel. I feel like I'm really at a racetrack here. Our beloved and essential marshals, some bits of coloured cloth for flags, giving the instruction to the drivers. And that little curve over there is what you're looking for. It's so hard to see as you come out of turn 10. It's not a straight, it's a sweeping left-hander. And you can see as everything's taking the coloured paint off it, the paint comes off there. You can barely see that. Here comes the McLaren. And again, they have to take a little breather as they go into the right-hander. Karun, you got a question for me?
Yeah, Mark, I was just wondering if you saw Kimi Raikkonen coming through there, because he looked really hooked up. And actually, if you look to your left, I could see on the driver tractor, he's about to come past you in a second. So I'll be interested, because he's gone very quickly in that middle sector in the Alfa Romeo. And they
fighting the car all the way out until the track straightens up. And we got Lewis Hamilton coasting past now, presumably building up to some laps. So I think this corner, say there's no braking element involved when you get a big weight transfer, as it were. But it's certainly a massive demand on the aerodynamics as it was in winter testing in Barcelona. Back up to the commentary box properly.
Yeah, thanks ever so much, Martin. Jack and Johnny watching Valtteri Bottas while Martin was talking there on his flying lap. And he was giving that full beans right from the outset. Johnny, that's a super lap time of a 1:22.6.
Yeah, and I think there's more in the pocket, to be honest. That Mercedes looks very, very twitchy, very, very on edge. and very bouncy, I think, as we've discussed before. So I think there's more to come from it. We were talking about the track and the tyres and how they're sort of responding at the present time. From my experience, this is just typical of Albert Park, because it is just the evolution is so fast, and the change to the tyre then becomes more of an even situation where you can actually get the balance a lot better and the tyre doesn't go off as quickly.
Jack Hamilton's backed off a little bit. That's why he's getting tangled with Sebastian Vettel at the moment. I don't know if this is mind games or whatever.
The first fight of the season coming up here for track position.
Did Vettel hold him up a bit? That's why he backed off, and now he's getting his own back.
I didn't quite catch it. It might have been he wasn't quite happy with the warm-up of the tyres through that first sector, and in that case it's better to just back off and have another go.
Yeah, just to keep as a reference, guys, Bottas obviously was P2 earlier on before he put the soft tyre on the car. Yeah. You know, Bottas gaining 8/10 between the compounds. Be interesting to see what Lewis can do. This is a replay. Did he go wide somewhere?
Well, no, I think Sebastian, they've slowed it down a bit there, but Vettel is just up ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Here in the commentary box, your burly minder that you brought with you is saying he's got things to do.
I don't know. Drag me away and put me back in the garage.
Yeah, what do you do now for the rest of the day, apart from listen to Daniel and Nico and talk about their birthday parties?
Well, I'm just going to try and watch and learn as much as I can, go to the briefings, all of that fun stuff, and do a bit of media work for the guys as well. Just basically help any way I can.
Talk and listen. We like that. And you're more than welcome to come back here anytime you want, and we'll see you. When's the first F2 race?
Bahrain.
Yeah. Johnny Herbert commentating?
Yeah, you've got our support, that's for sure.
So, Jack Atkins.
And it's just 8
Thanks ever so much.
Aren't you an 8-kin?
Yes.
Other than 8-kins?
What, sorry?
Are you a Jack 8-kin, aren't you? Rather
Yes.
than 8-kins. No, you got that wrong again. It's not 8-kins.
That was me.
No, I know, we were just doing that. Yes, that was on purpose.
Right, carry on. I'm just going to stop talking.
We'll leave
Never
these
mind.
guys to bicker for a little while, and we'll get that name right while we go to the man they call Martin Brundle out by the side of the track.
Indeed, I found myself on the outside of turn 15, the penultimate corner. This feels a bit like being in Monaco, because I could almost reach out and touch the cars there. This is the very piece of grass underneath there, if you were watching Free Practice 1, where Valtteri Bottas got wide on the way in. He was looking left and veered right and spun off, and Bottas was coming through just as we're talking about that. And you can see the sort of cul-de-sac feel from the driver's eye view of the end of this lap, because 15 and 16 are very close together, completely surrounded by hospitality and grandstands, and for good measure, pit in. But if you watch now the Haas going into the last corner, look how tight it looks on the way in, and how you're just staring at the wall. And we know that they've got to launch through there onto that very long pit straight. It's a critical part of the racetrack, lap time-wise, as the second of the Renaults now goes through a little bit wide on entry. And you can see they're getting into that melodic, if you like, the rhythm they get into now as they're doing the longer runs. And I have to say, they're all pretty well behaved. It used to be a massive problem getting the car slowed down into here without your front left wheel locking up. Charles Leclerc taking nice speed into the apex again there in the Ferrari. So everything's behaving itself quite well in the slower section of the racetrack, Crofty.
Cheers.
Where they just went through all those engines, they took all those penalties that went through. So that was done for the purpose of making sure that it was ready when it was bolted in the back of the Red Bull.
Drink system check, drink system check.
I don't have it. You didn't put it.
Copy.
Oops. You'd have thought, you'd have thought the engineer would know that bit.
You would have thought so.
You'd first look at the mechanic and say, did you put the drinks bottle in?
I'm surprised there's even one in there. I didn't think they were allowed all that extra weight.
These are little teething problems that you need to iron out, of course, at the first race of the season.
Or at testing.
Or at testing.
Yeah.
Oh, just communication issues. There's a check.
Yeah. This is a funny sort of question to ask, and then a funny answer to come from the driver. Maybe they haven't told Daniel that he's actually got his drinks bottle in there. Maybe they have put it in, but they haven't actually told the driver.
Well, he said it's not working, didn't he?
Well, he hasn't got one.
Yeah. Anyway, Kvyat, what do we think, Crofty, on his return? You know, P7 this morning, P11 today, convincingly ahead of Albon. He should be pretty pleased with his first day back in Formula 1, shouldn't he?
He should be. It's what happens from here on in and how long this relationship lasts that I'm sure will be concerning Danny Kvyat, who's a lovely guy, who's a thoroughly talented Formula 1 driver who, let us not forget, has stood on the podium before, has made mistakes, obviously, and it's cost him dear. But he's not in that Toro Rosso car. This sounds a bit harsh on Kvyat, and I don't mean it this way, because Red Bull and their driver development program think he is the best thing on the planet for that team. He's there because they were running out of numbers. But that said, he has the ability to prove that the decision to bring him back is the right decision. And I just hope that he approaches this season, Johnny, and you know him really, really well, not thinking about the bad stuff that's happened in the past. That is Alex Albon, his teammate, who of course had the incident at turn 2 in the first session, and has gone off there at turn 14 towards the end of that particular lap. No damage done on this one, but he did spend a long time thinking about being rejected by Red Bull and having to go back to Toro Rosso and the bad stuff in the past, and that really affected him last time he was in the sport, John.
Yeah, very much so.
Absolutely.
This time last year, Haas could have claimed, what, 4th and a 5th, had the wheels not literally fallen off in their particular race. Where do we think Haas are this year? Magnussen and Grosjean. Could they spring a top 6 surprise? Should one of the big... Oh, bless. It's been a long day, it really has. My youngest, by the way, has been to see a Grand Prix 4 times. He's fallen asleep at 3 of them.
That's all right. My wife's been to see a Grand Prix half a dozen times, fallen asleep at most of them anyway.
I've been to a couple of Grand Prix and I've fallen asleep as well.
You've driven in a couple of Grand Prix that you fell asleep in, John.
I suspect something is wrong.
We need driver default, Charlie 0.
Something not quite right in the Charles Leclerc. He's not very happy with the car there.
Changed the subject. He really impressed me yesterday when he was asked about the team orders at Ferrari, number 1 and a number 2. What do you reckon to that?
That's
he
good,
went,
isn't it?
so I totally agree. A team like Ferrari, we should be a number 1. There should be a number 2. Absolutely right. It's up to me, though, isn't it, to turn things around in my favour.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was a perfect way of answering that, and showed a lovely confidence without being overconfident. I'm going to be fascinated to see what Charles Leclerc can do this season. What were we talking about? Haas. Where do we think Haas are?
Well, I think going into this weekend after the test, everyone was sort of expecting them maybe to be where they were last year. And I think they had a good run in qualifying. They had a good run in the race until all the wheels fell off, like you said. You know, as we look at the moment, that's not quite the case. But I would imagine that it will all come together tomorrow. And I think they will be right at the sharp end of that mid-pack, that's for sure.
There's Valtteri Bottas, the man that Karun and Johnny say has impressed them on these race runs. And I repeat, I looked at him and thought 25-1 to win the world title. Not a bad each-way bet, surely, on Valtteri Bottas, who's grown a beard and got tough, he says, during the course of the winter. Paul di Resta, where are you?
Yeah, I was just having a quick look at one of the garages. I eventually got to look at a screen crofty, and I was looking at the midfield battle. One driver pair, and I would expect it to have been very much the other way, was Racing Point, and I would have expected Perez to kind of lead that team now that Stroll's new to it, but Stroll's done a very good job today. 4 tenths in front of his teammate today, and equally in the first run in P1 he was right up there. So Sergio, with that being so close, really needs to step up his game if he wants to get into Q3 and really take that race to the likes of Renault and all the rest. But combination working well.
Sergio Perez.
That's normal. So
twitchy, but we've seen this lovely balanced car. So again, there are sort of things they're doing. There's a program they're sticking to, and they're going to be better.
And then it's the drivers, isn't it? The drivers got to deliver the lap.
Yeah.
And that's what Formula 1 as a sport is edging towards in terms of a utopia. To leave it in the hands of the drivers to make that final bit of difference, you know, after the team have done all their hard work to get these cars built, designed, set up and to the track, and then the drivers to make the difference afterwards. And I think that's what we all want as Formula 1 fans.
That looks like we might get.
Well, let's hope so. Let's give you some averages, guys.
Yes.
Yeah? We like averages, don't we? 6 laps on the soft tyre for Valtteri Bottas, averaged a 128.3. Sebastian Vettel did 11 laps on the soft tyre and averaged a 129.0. And Pierre Gasly did 7 laps on the soft tyre and a 129.2. So we don't know if Valtteri Bottas was hitting a bit of a cliff and started to degrade, and that's why he had to come in after just 6 laps on their soft, and that average after 11 laps could be round about where the Ferrari is, but it's a big difference over the first 6 laps, isn't it? Leclerc did a 1:28.9 over 11 laps, and that in itself is interesting because that's averaged out to be faster than his teammates.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, it's all going to shake out, isn't it? But it's, I love this. I think we're all going to wake up with a buzz of, you know, we've seen all these cars on track, and normally after the first day you'd go, okay, we've kind of got an answer who it is. But actually, we're going to go to sleep tonight, not really any closer to the truth.
And we're going to wake up earlier than we normally do, so we'll be up about 2 o'clock.
Oh, I know, don't.
But you know we're going to wake up early because that 2-seater will be blasting around Albert Park.
Oh,
Charles Leclerc has stopped by the side of the track now. Is this something mechanical? No, because he's facing the wrong way round.
It's at exit of turn 4.
It is, yes. Yeah, exit 4. So past the car park by the sports stadium, and he's managed to get on the grass and spin himself around.
Yeah, he's probably straddled that yellow curb there, I would imagine, maybe ground out. Yeah.
And this is the sort of thing that rather makes you not have a good night's sleep if you're Charles Leclerc as well. What a perfect day at the bin until a minute and a half before the checkered flag for Charles Leclerc, who's managed to get going again, and we can see exactly what happened. This is on the run now down towards turn 3. There's a Williams ahead of him that shouldn't be affecting him too much, and now what happens as he gets on the power onto the curb, Johnny? There you go.
Yeah, just a little bit on that sausage curb, and that just was enough to let the rear end sort of spin on him there. A little bit of a tank slap going on there.
He was back on the hard compound tyre that he started this session on, because he's got one more set of those than his teammate. But oh, Karun, what does that do to your Friday night in Melbourne?
I don't think it'll be too bad. He'll get away with that. You know, he's in his first weekend as a Ferrari driver. You've got to cut him a little bit of slack. He didn't hit the wall, and there's nowhere to hide. You know, there's just nowhere to hide when you're driving for one of the top 3 teams, is there? The pressure's on. Let's just see as the weekend goes. But he'll shake it off. Nothing phases everybody. As Johnny Herbert said, tomorrow is a whole new day.
So it is.
So, free practice 2 prior to this weekend. Lewis Hamilton hadn't been beaten in any Friday session in Melbourne since 2015. That's carried on as well. What else? It's the most evenly split session in 2018. Mercedes led it 10 times, Ferrari 6 times, Red Bull 5 times. It's Mercedes that lead it today. Ferrari didn't lead FP2 in any of the final 6 races last season, make that 7 races then on the bounce. Kimi Raikkonen, 6th fastest this afternoon, as he was this morning for Alfa Romeo as well. Is that a case of the driver making the difference for the Swiss-based team, or are they genuinely a top 6 contender? So many questions. We'll have a big roundup as well, and a new show for you on Sky Sports F1 coming very, very shortly. As it was this morning, Lewis Hamilton, the fastest driver overall, and as it was last year, Mercedes 1 and 2 as far from memory. Valtteri Bottas certainly 2nd fastest this afternoon from Verstappen, Gasly and Vettel, the top 5. But we certainly don't think that Verstappen, Gasly, Vettel and Leclerc down in 9th was the genuine pace that we'll see in qualifying by the 2 Red Bulls or the Ferrari. So it could be an awful lot closer than people might think, just looking at the headline times for today. Lance Stroll ahead of his teammate Sergio Perez, Kevin Magnussen behind Romain Grosjean, Albon spinning around a little bit, Giovinazzi had problems too, George Russell down at turn 3. It's been a day to remember for all the rookies, and they'll come back tomorrow, 3 of them, Norris, Russell and also Albon for their first Formula 1 qualifying. We'll be here too, come and join us.
We will indeed pick the bones out of that one. We'll attempt to do that in the roundup show, which follows at 7 a.m. We'll have a look at both of the practice sessions and how much to read into these things. Were Mercedes going through a normal run plan? Were the others sandbagging? What do you make of that session?
We have to stay calm on that because I think they're on different programs, and Mercedes hit it when they needed to. But I think what it does tell us is that Mercedes have homed in on their car. There's nothing wrong with that car at all, or their pace, and they're really right in the action. But the Ferrari looks so good out on track, as does the Red Bull. I don't think we should any headlines based on that session other than Mercedes are still very much right in the hand would be misleading.
Well, let me come straight back to you because you were trackside, Martin. Your assessment then of the leading teams and the way they handled different corners?
Well, everything was good through the slow corners, I must say. It's hard to see a difference between anything. But the quick stuff where they're really challenged aerodynamically, you could see cars like the Mercedes, like the Ferrari, as you always can here. You know, the drivers just got the confidence to keep the throttle nailed, and we know how much torque, how much twisting power these engines put out. And they're taking a 90-degree right-hander at 150 miles an hour, and they've got the confidence to keep the pedal nailed, the throttle pedal nailed down. So, you know, and that's a sixth sense. That's an instinct you get in the car, the load coming through the steering wheel, your gyros, your eyes, your backside, all the information you're getting and you're processing, you know, a million times a lap, and the drivers just quickly, instinctively feel the lateral loads and that the car's stable, and they're not expecting any surprises. I think Charles Leclerc just got a little bit lazy on that towards the end there and wasn't a bit carefree up on the curbs, but generally speaking, you can just see the cars nailed to the track.
Here's another look at Leclerc, just got onto the curb and wheel spun up, do you think, Damon?
Yeah, he just runs a little bit wide there, and it suddenly caught him out. Could be the tyres were at the end of their run, but he just thought, I'm going to see where the limit is. But he held it nicely, didn't hit anything.
He did. And a more encouraging session for Pierre Gasly because, yeah, OK, he caused a bit of damage to the car in testing, but he came out and he was over a second shy of his teammate in the opening practice session. It was important that he went out in the afternoon and said, you know, here I am.
Gasly's got the speed he needs. We know. We saw him in Bahrain in a Toro Rosso last year, going incredibly well. So I think he's still got a tall order. Pierre Gasly's speed is whether his head's strong enough to cope with the pressure of being a Red Bull driver.
Well, I mean, I got a little chance to meet Pierre the other day on the beach, and it strikes me as he's not phased at all. He's loving it at the moment. But of course, as we know, Martin, you know, that's fine until things start to pile up and you get one or two problems, and then it can crush a Formula One driver, even a Formula One driver.
Yeah, I mean, he did apparently 1.7 million worth of damage in testing, and I don't think that endeared him to the team because they were busy trying to find new gearboxes and all sorts of things. But I think he'll find his way. But it is the pressure, whether he'll surf or whether he'll drown.
Yeah. Other things to grab from this afternoon, just very quickly, encouraging day for Kimi Räikkönen and for Alpha.
Yeah, it's amazing. Every time I looked up at the screen, and there they were. So it's very promising.
OK, brilliant stuff. OK, there we go for the moment. As we said, following in around about 15 minutes' time, we're going to have a little wrap-up of how practice went today, and we'll look ahead to what is going to be absolutely what we've all been waiting for tomorrow, and that is the first qualifying of 2019. Hamilton quickest in both sessions, but particularly this morning. It looked tight. Bye-bye.
Sky Sports F1. Feel it all.